Welcome to Fated, a podcast brought to you by Majella and Carlie, two romantically obsessed readers who believe that great books must include declarations of undying love and deep thrusts of desire. Diving into the spicy, smutty fantasy genre, we are here for both the rattling of stars and headboards, and our podcast starts with the worlds of SJM, but delves into other realms. Did we mention that washboard abs and wands of all kinds are welcome in this inclusive and magically charged space? No topic is off limits, and no one is forced to have only one favourite heroine. Welcome to Fated, where we are unabashedly and wholeheartedly hot and heavy for spicy fantasy fiction. It's time to sit down and smut up. Warning, spoilers ahead.
All right, hello and welcome to episode 6 of Fated, the podcast. I'm Carlie.
And I'm Majella, and today we have decided to dive deep into Assassin's Blade because it is a book by J Maas that's part of the Throne of Glass series, which Carlie and I read in different orders, and but we've both read it very recently. I read it after completing the entire series because I was avoiding any spoilers on TikTok about what was happening, and so I didn't see people discussing what order to read the books in. And so for me, I just sort of read it through, and it almost was a book that I thought was like a side tangent or a novella or something. And we will discuss what order we think now, after both reading it, what order we think we should read it in. But we want to talk about what happened because it has, as do almost all of SJM's books, but it has left a little bit of a shockwave kind of reverberating in its wake. And I think this episode is mostly for Carlie and I as a form of therapy to get us through what has happened. So I want to be very clear and say there are spoilers. We are talking about this in depth. It will be the only book in the series that we talk about in depth. So we won't be jumping ahead to the rest of Throne of Glass because Carlie hasn't finished that yet. But in this particular book, we will be talking about what happened in detail. So if you haven't read it yet, if it's on your to-be-read list, this probably is an episode you need to come back to because you don't want to spoil it. Like, I think it makes it, and I'll explain why, it makes it worse if you know. So yeah, Carlie, I think it's going to be a sad one, a big one.
We need to go there, but we first need to ask what we're reading now. What are you reading now, Madge, or have most recently read? Maybe you're in a reading pause.
Well, I did just read Iron Flame, and I am still in recovery. So I have picked up a book that you recommended very strongly, a two-part series by Carissa Broadbent, the first one being A Serpent and the Wings of Night, which apparently is about vampires, and you devoured it very quickly, loved it, still rave about it.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. I'm so excited.
Even though you read it. Yes, and I am ready for a new world of characters, I think, because I'm waiting for everyone now. I'm waiting for the next Akatar book. I'm waiting for the next Crescent City book. And then now I'm waiting for the next installment of the Iron Flame. I'm just in perpetual waiting, Carlie, and I don't know if this is good for my mental health.
Well, I think
what are you reading?
Definitely a con of being obsessed with fantasy romance is the waiting. I'm so excited to get your messages about the Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent. Yes, I devoured that, and I think it'll be great for you. It's a 2-book series, and I think it's going to be good for you. So I last night finished the Assassin's Blade. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So, like, reading order. So we're talking about the Throne of Glass series, and I need all the gates to be open, and I need to be able to just talk without worrying about spoilers. So I'm glad you said that. So I had read Throne of Glass. I had got 150 pages into Crown of Midnight because I had been told that I should read the Assassin's Blade third in the series of, 8 books? So I'd seen people talk about that, and there is apparently like a tandem read you can do, and there's all these different orders that people are suggesting online of how you read the Throne of Glass series. I went, okay, I'm going to read it third, but I got halfway through Crown of Midnight, the second-ish book, and I thought, no, I want to understand Selena. I felt that there was stuff. There was stuff about her character, what she'd been through, what she'd endured, that I wanted to understand before I proceeded any further into the series. So I literally put Crown of Midnight down at 150 pages, went to the Assassin's Blade. I also did that because Majella just recently read it too. I thought, oh my God, that'll be so fresh for us to talk about on the potty. And so I finished it last night. I am grieving and also excited to read the rest of the series. I have so much more understanding about this character now, because I'll be honest, in Throne of Glass, yeah, like it was okay. I didn't really fully connect with Selena. It was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got through it, and people said, oh, it gets better as you go on in the series, so just get through it. Crown of Midnight, I was just getting through it. But I can tell you, if I had actually read Assassin's Blade first, and I'm going to encourage people to do that, to read it first, which is how the series is meant to like run story-wise, I probably would have enjoyed Throne of Glass a lot more. That's what I'm going to say. That's my opinion. The Assassin's Blade is the prequel. It's a series of novellas. So within the Assassin's Blade, there's a few stories that really gave me so much more depth to the characters, and also answered some questions about Sam Cortland that Selena kept alluding to, and I just thought was like maybe a little fling or a tiny love story, but it was so much more than that. And so let's talk about it. So that's what I've read last night. Now I'm going to go back to Crown of Midnight to answer your question. That's what I'm going to be reading. Crown of Midnight I'm going to go back and finish. So let's talk about the Assassin's Blade. Do you want to start with your feelings, thoughts, emotions?
I'm just going to add on to your reading order so we can kind of close that little topic off, because I read it last, as I mentioned, and I do think it was the worst way to read it. I didn't know any better, and that's just how it went. But throughout the entire series, she talked, oh my God, I'm going to cry. Like,
honey. All emotions are welcome here. She talked about Sam.
Oh my God. Yeah, and that's what this book did, was that.
Oh, Madge, she can't. I'll just give her a moment. Yeah, this was such an important relationship for Selena. Like the foundational love story, her first love story. She was 17. Madge pulls herself.
It's just so. I think because
we needed this story
throughout the whole series. You need that Selena talks about Sam and the impact it has had, and he was with her in spirit in some pivotal moments.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think, how much he means to her by how he's depicted throughout the series.
Yeah.
But so maybe it's a good thing, because if I'd known how much she loved him and how good he was,
so good,
then maybe it would have been worse, because it is that the kind of the one that got away, and not just because of bad timing, or that it wasn't kind of they weren't both fully in. It was literally like a horrific ending, like a terrible, because I think in these worlds, it's unusual for we know that there's going to be a happy ending. Like in all of these books, it's part of the romantasy requirement.
Yeah.
People do die.
Yeah.
But never the main love story characters. There is always this happy ending, even if they are carrying so much fucking trauma and PTSD by the end of it. They still have their person, and they're still, you know, there's an ending that gives you a sense of peace. Whereas with Sam, there is no peace because he should not have died. And also the way he was betrayed is just like, I think that I just would have read the rest of the series as well with just like so much rage at um, Aberon,
Arabin. Yeah.
that Arabin, that I just would have been like, it just would have been almost like hard to tolerate, because it is such, like, it is so unnecessary, and the motivations for doing it by him, by Aberon,
I don't
were
like
so petty.
So yes,
Like,
so
it is just like, that line itself is so cold and devoid of like the beautiful heart that the characters you love have. You know, he is so, and he is the king of assassins for a reason. Like, that is why he rules, you know. But it's like, it also makes other things further on just like, you know, a little, anyway, it's just, it just was like,
I love
I think reading it first would have been the best way, because I think that it also did get quite, it drew you in quite quickly. I think what happens often with SJM books, and I think this is quite a universal thing, is that they are slow starters, not a slow burn. They're literally slow starters. Like, a lot of the books, the very first book in all of her series can be quite slow. Even like the first part of each book. Like, every time you start a new book, it's like you have to sort of like, it's almost like your engine has to like slowly warm up back into the SJM world. And I've noticed, just coming off the back of Iron Flame, I don't have that with Iron Flame. I am like, first sentence, I'm in. Like, there's a different type of, the energetic, like, it's a crackling with Rebecca Yarros. It's a real like, whew, I'm straight in there. And I don't know if that's just because of the way she writes, or because of the fact that it is a smaller world. It is a smaller world. It is quite pivotal to the one main love story in a way. Whereas SJM is crossing, there is multiple characters, there's multiple lands, there's, you know, plot points and side plots and all this kind of stuff. So it does build a bit slowly. And so I did find, though, that Assassin's Blade was one of her only books that I found like I was into it quite quickly. Like, I was just like, whew, okay, this is happening.
Do you think that's because
so in terms of the
wrote
order,
that last, I'm assuming she wrote that last, like after she'd written the other 8, because it was, then she wrote this as the prequel, maybe. But yes, I agree. Straight in to these beautiful stories. It didn't feel like a novella to me. It really didn't. It felt like a really rounded novel. But I also want to say, I want to pull out what you said around, one of the main characters, so Sam Cortland, Selena's first true love. He dies a very tragic, gruesome, horrific, torturous death. So awful. Tears streaming down my face. Couldn't catch my breath. Had to put the book down and stare at the ceiling for a little moment, kind of ending. And you said, you know, that usually they don't die, our main characters, but obviously this needed to happen. He needed, like, for the story, for her journey, he needed to die. And one of the points that I wrote down or pondered as well was, you know, in his death, their love remained really pure and true. And so I haven't read the whole series like you have, but I wonder if like that just, as awful as it was, as I feel like I've lost a beautiful person in my real life today, I could see that, it kind of then just got stopped in time, captured in time. But now Sam is just always going to be a pure good love, because they didn't even have sex. They didn't even make love. So I guess now her imagination, I'm assuming her imagination can kind of take it where it would have gone, or she could have imagined what it was like. There's an element of that in that for me too. Like, oh, just, yeah, now he remains really pure in her heart and really good. Because the thing was, right, like the amount of betrayal that Selena endured in the Assassin's Blade from her friend, so-called friend, evil cow Ansel, not evil, but she had her own shit going on, obviously. Like that was huge. And then to be betrayed not once, not twice, but many, many, many times by Arabin, who was really a father figure to her and trained her, but ultimately just continued to turn on her. And, he beat her, sent her to the desert, made her, show her commitment to him over and over. And then obviously the ultimate betrayal by setting up Sam to die. Like the level of betrayal for me, I'm like, how does anyone endure that at the age of 17? And then how does anyone ever go on to trust again? And so my question in my head is like, does she ever trust again? Does she fall in love again? Who does she trust again? So I'm sure that'll come up in books. But how do you feel about that? Like the betrayal just felt like a constant, oh my God, who can you trust in this world?
Well, I think that by reading it last, the betrayal actually felt normal. There is the amount that Selena endures throughout the series, like it is insane. Like she is my favorite character. I mean, I love the Akatar world. I think Reese is my favorite male character, just in terms of like his kind of complexity and layers, and the fact that he brings that cheeky banter, and that's his sort of appeal. But he's, got a huge heart and will do anything for the people he loves. Whereas, and I do really love Faya as well, but Selena is just different. She's just what she goes through. Like Assassin's Blade is intense, but I think it is like you can tell when I'm losing it when I start saying like all the time. Like it's just like by the time you get to the end, the fabric of your cellular being will have changed.
Okay.
It is just so I think the betrayal feels normal because Aberrant is he goes through the story, so that is a big thread of
really. I just
like he is there.
Really, go away, Arabin.
Yeah.
Good done.
I mean, you do need a villain, but the problem is that like he is also a villain that again, in his weird way, he does love her, but it's just that like it's not and never has been a love that is healthy.
No.
And she talks about it in here about how he is a father, a mentor, a potential lover energy, even though he never sort of acts on that. But there is that there's that energy or that insinuation in moments where, but because he found her when she was, and I am really cautious about saying certain things here because you find out the entire backstory, obviously, of Selena and how she came to be where she is, and so I just really want to be mindful of not saying anything for you.
So all we learn in Assassin's Blade is that he found her on the riverbank when she was young.
Yes.
And then trained her. Yep. Took her in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm excited.
And there is I think the only thing I think that feels a little soothing about the ending of this is that it does feel fated to happen because of other things that must happen for her to become the woman she is destined to be.
Yeah.
And I do think that if she had ended up with Sam, she would have had probably a really beautiful, normal life. She might have fought that part of her and they might have done certain things in a small way to change what was happening in the world, but I don't think that she could have become what she needed to become with Sam by her side because of various reasons that you will find out. There is a small comfort in that, I think as well, even it's just the way he ended that made it so bad. You know what I mean? Like if he had just been killed with a single stab wound or shot or something, it would have been like, that sucks. And he was a good guy. But the fact that he was a good guy and that he had to have this awful ending, and also that she tried to respect that he could handle himself, to not be like, oh my God, I'm going to come and rescue you. And I know something's wrong, but, and also learning to listen to that intuition of like, is this intuition? Is this fear? Is this me trying to like prove that like he needs me to rescue, like, that I'm better than him? And she's like, and out of respect for him and his skills, I don't want to go in there assuming that he can't handle himself, which made it worse because she had all these hours where potentially she could have attempted a rescue. She could have attempted to save him.
6 hours of torture.
Yes. And, but
still on that chapter. So can we go back to the start of the Assassin's Blade just a little, because, it starts with the assassin and the pirate lord. And, the first few chapters, I was just like, oh, Selena, you are so selfish and self-absorbed, so bloody egotistical. And I did, there's this element of disliking her, like, who the hell do you think you are? But then I remembered also that she's only like 17, and that's pretty age appropriate for 17-year-olds, right? So self-absorbed, gonna just think that they're, the bee's knees. And whilst she has this life experience in that she's been trained to be one of the best assassins in the world, she's killed people, she's maimed people, she's tortured people, she's still 17, and there's so much life experience that she actually doesn't have. But then we start to see when she creates the plan to free the slaves, we start to see the compassionate side of her. Whereas before that, I was like, oh, you're just cold and, shut down and heartless and up yourself. It was like, oh, hang on, there is something there. There's compassion. And that, I think, was clever because it gave me a side of her character that I could cheer for. That I was like, okay, I want to see that side of you develop. There's something there that's going to develop. And of course, we see that over the course of the book, and I'm going to assume throughout the series of, fighting for the underdog and a big heart underneath what she's been really trained to be. So did you have that initial reaction to Selena of like, oh, you're dislikable? I had it a little bit as well in Throne of Glass. I was like, why are you so bloody, shut off and shut down and so rude? But now I kind of get it. I get it. She'd literally just been betrayed by everyone in her life and lost the love of her life at that point. But what was your initial reaction to Selena? Because this is the first book.
It is really hard to remember what my initial response was, because after reading such an epically complex series where the layers and the layers, I don't ever remember though thinking, I think once I knew that she was the main character, as in like once I was kind of like, oh yeah, she's pivotal, I was like, she will be good. Like I guess it's that assumption going in because of the genre, because of like, this character is going to be my heroine. She's going to be the person that I walk behind throughout this journey. She will be good there. And I don't know, I'm sure there are books where that belief will end up causing me pain, because I'm sure there will be authors who are like, you think this is the main character, but actually just going to do a switcheroo and it's a villain or it's something, and they're just going to betray someone, and then it's, but that hasn't happened yet. And so I think that because I wasn't that invested in her yet, and I had an assumption that she was going to be good, there was this, I guess, this tolerance to the rough edges. And I also think, just from knowing psychology and knowing people, when people are that prickly, they're usually the softest inside. Like those people are usually the ones where you're just like, oh, you're a gooey mess, and you can't be that in the real world because otherwise you will be killed. You will be broken. And so I think I read like that. Like I read with those kind of filters on, where I think about like why people are reacting in that way. You
Yeah,
know,
totally.
what has happened to cause this? Why she's alone? You know, like she's broken.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that's what the
you know,
Assassin's
so
Blade
there.
gave me so much more context for that. Because in Throne of Glass, I was like, why? Why are you like this? I've heard about Endovia, but what else has happened to you to be so rude to Dorian and Kale, right? So I think, yeah, this definitely filled in a lot of the gaps. Yeah.
But even isn't in Throne of Glass though? That is where, because now that's the very first one I read. That is where she's in the salt mines.
So she's she's retrieved. She's retrieved from there by Kale and
Dorian and
Dorian to go to the king to
yes,
fight. Yeah, yeah,
yes. So they've talked about how she almost escaped. She was like one of the
yes.
only slaves. She made it to the fence line,
But she was.
and
Oh, is that going to be a spoiler for book?
no, no, as in like and then she
Done.
took,
But she
and
did.
there's a
She
woman there that she tries to save. Does that get talked about in Throne of
yeah,
Glass?
yeah. There's definitely elements of like there's some good here. Like there
Yeah.
is some softness here. Yeah, it's interesting. I often think, well, shouldn't I feel that way a little bit about Arabin? But no, I just hate him, and I don't think there's any good in, in him. There is good in him because he does love her in his stupid, traumatic, abusive way. But yeah. Anyway, that was how I began with the Pirate Lord. She's freeing the slaves. And, she didn't like Sam at the start at all. He was competition. And so they were very, very prickly with each other at the start as well. And then they get sent on this mission to Skulls Bay to get the slave trade set up. And that's where things start to spark up a little bit. There's some sparking of like, oh, hang on, you may be an all right guy. And then, just that whole like freeing the slaves together. He nearly died. They turned together against Arabin, like that whole. I loved that story. I could actually go read that first part of that novella again. But that's where we saw that, and that's where it's okay. There's some softening here. There's some melting of the heart a little bit, but still she would cling to like really just sticking it to him and saying some awful things to him. That was a big theme. I was like, the shit he put up with from her. And he still loved her. Some of the stuff she said.
But I guess also you understand, like she's not had any good role models.
No.
Like she hasn't seen any healthy modeling of a relationship. She has seen Aberin with prostitutes and call girls where he buys affection, and even then it's like a massive power dynamic. She's probably surrounded by these assassins who I would assume also wouldn't have healthy relationships. They would probably just go out and fuck women in between their killing assignments, so there is this aspect of, obviously she has such kind of strong walls of protection up, and Sam has done the same thing because he is also good underneath, so he would have had to put up very similar walls. Like I'm even surprised that they both could bring down their walls enough to trust each other after the way they have been raised.
Yes, because Arabin pitted them against each other, right? And they were both taught that everyone is a threat and to trust no one except him. But I still felt like Sam had a lot more. Well, obviously he realized, like she says at the end, she really didn't realize any feelings for him until Skulls Bay. But Sam had obviously loved her for a lot longer. But yeah, he was much nicer to her than she was to him in those first, I don't know, like 250 pages. It took a while.
I know. But I think it's also, it seems to be as you get to know Selena more, that she is, like there's lots of little things that she does that belie the kind of person she is. Like, she'll often secretly hand out money to the homeless as she walks past, or she'll protect someone that, is weakened. So there's all these little
Yeah.
signs all the time. And I think if you were living in an assassin's house and you watched someone and you saw that you didn't know that they saw, but if you had seen her sneak off and buy the homeless loaves of bread or something, or if you had seen her leave money in certain places, or if you'd seen her walk down a street knowing that that's when a girl would come out of the bar and to protect her as she walked down a laneway, you would start to be like, interesting. And also the fact that, you've written about it here, but her love of music, I feel like it's just,
I love that
it's
scene.
it's a beautiful window into like how, I guess, soft and poetic and
Mm.
yearning for the beauty and softness of life. That's what she wants. That's what the connection to music allows her to tap into, that part of herself. I think that she really locks away to be able to kill on
Yeah.
demand and to stay alive and to tap into
Yeah.
that bravado of like, I'm
Survival.
better than everyone else and no one can kill me and I will take anyone down and
Yeah.
I am smart and brave. And and this music allows her to tap into the world of longing and yearning and potential and what could be and how other people might live and love. And
Yes.
I think that is a real a kind
Oh,
of moment where if you hadn't already, you start to think, oh, wow, like she is really not being herself for a
yeah.
lot of the
And I'm
time,
so,
like she's really locked up.
yeah, I'm so excited to see this journey of her unlocking and the walls maybe coming down and her discovering who she is. But yes, right now, like in the Assassin's Blade, she's in survival mode and clinging to what she does know and clinging to what she does best. Because what else has she got to cling to? And we do see that, as you said, her helping side. So the second part of the novella is the assassin and the healer, and how she connects with, I pronounced it Irene, Yrene, Irene, in the tavern, who's actually a healer with, an incredible story. That's another, like, the great thing about SJM is like, oh, her story could be a complete series or at least a standalone book as well. But we see her giving her the money to go to college and become the healer that she, needs to be to get out of this disgusting tavern. And I really loved that story. I loved them all. But that was, on the way to the desert because she'd been banished to the desert for ruining Arabin's plans for the slave trade. So banished to the desert. And this is actually just to also comment on the music. So yeah, page 259. I loved the scene where she got lost in the music at the symphony at the orchestra, and this little quote. It says, "The silence was the so after the music crescendoed and finished." There was silence. The silence was the worst thing she had ever heard. The silence brought back everything around her. Just to me, I was like, oh, I can just picture her being completely immersed and completely lost in that. Even though she was actually there to spy on Donovel and she had a mission to accomplish, she completely forgot that in that world of music. And then, of course, that links to when Sam brought her seemed to gain access to the sheet music for that symphony and left it for her as a present. I mean, how divine. How divine was he to have done that. Um,
Yes, it
let's
was a
talk
beautiful
about the
gesture.
desert, the assassin in the desert. So this part is when she's in the desert. What I really pulled out of this was the contrast between the mute master in the desert and Arabin Hamel, and how differently they trained, treated, cared for their assassins. What did you think about that contrast?
Well, I mean, I think that it was interesting that he sent her there as punishment, and
Mm,
it was the opposite. It was a gift to learn those skills just on a very base level from assassin's point of view, like being given the gift of learning how to move like an asp, like a snake, like the shadows of the night. What an incredible gift. But also um her being able to witness a powerful leader who is almost the opposite in almost every way to her current leader, and to see the ways in which he trains, the ways in which the people around him live and work and interact with each other, the sort of lack of fear that drives people and more the desire to be respected by the master, to be like, oh my God, please pick me so that I can be honored to learn from you, not to please pick me so that I don't die, and I know that you aren't going to kill me in my sleep,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and which is why I think the when the betrayal happens by Ansel, you do feel even more gutted because it is kind of her first female friend. She seems like a similar energy to Selena. She's wild and reckless, and she's had a hard upbringing, but she also has this unbridled joy in her when she is allowed to be free. But again, it's really interesting reading it in this order because knowing the whole story, it really colors every moment in a book that is set before what has already happened. Knowing what happens to character stories, and knowing like if I had known what had happened, it would have also made something further on it would have had a deeper impact because you would have already had that moment being like, oh, I understand. So I do understand, like, the betrayal was awful, but I also understand, once sort of Ansel's backstory had been expressed, you really understood why she was doing it. Like, she had chosen that path because that made the most sense to her, and also probably felt like the most satisfying retribution to balance this like heartbreaking loss that she had suffered and seen and was obviously not healed from.
And even within the betrayal, she sent Selena off. She didn't want Selena there. So there's still an element of trying to protect this friendship, as fake as it maybe potentially was. I don't think all of it was, but again, this is what Sarah J does so well, is showing the complexity of the human experience and the decisions that you make, and you can understand Ansel even though you want to harm Ansel and you want to shake her and go, what are you doing? And I'm assuming, you don't have to acknowledge this at all, but I'm assuming Ansel comes back at some point because she let her go and she didn't kill her. She shot the arrow at the horse at the 21-minute mark. She gave her 20 minutes to get away. She still hesitated. It didn't hurt Ansel. And so Ansel's got away, and I'm like, where are you going to come back? What's going to happen there? As I think the same with Irene, the healer in the tavern. I'm like, where will you come back later and at some point heal and save Selena? I love your poker face, Madge. It's very, very good.
It's a terrible poker face, but
you've done really
I do want to say, all you need to know is that one of the most powerful things about this series is the ability that Selena has to draw incredible women towards her on her mission.
Yeah.
Like,
I can already see that.
It is.
I can already see how she's like, almost, I can see these characters coming back and being somewhat grateful to her and wanting to help and serve her at some point in the future. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, she has this, it's like a thing that she can't seem to stop. She has this streak of mercy. It's just where she, and it's obviously she's had a hard life, and she's almost like she wants to take other people's suffering away. Like, I don't want you to suffer this, but people don't have to have that. She could have had her life, and then it could have solidified into like a very lethal form of hatred, which she has definitely a stream of rage running through her that becomes quite targeted at points towards people and situations. But underneath all of that is always this seed of softness, this instinctual, like, when you hit your knee, your knee will jerk. It's like she has this knee-jerk reaction to she must be merciful. It's like her nature. That's what comes out, which is why you want her, you're rooting for her. But, it's also, it is also something that she really struggles with, because it means that she doesn't make the easy choice. She doesn't kill that person that would have eliminated that problem permanently. She's like, oh, the merciful choice is to let that person live, because potentially they will have redemption. They will learn from this. They will become a better person. And many times that does not happen. Many times you're just like, you should have fucking killed that person.
Yeah.
Like, you definitely should have. Like, as the reader, you're like,
why?
why?
I was like,
why did you let them live?
Kill her, just do it. Finish it. And then I was like, what do you mean you're not finishing this? And I wonder if Arabin, really saw that in her. Like, you actually do have too much mercy, softness, whatever. You're not going to actually be the merciless killer. Is that the word? That I want you to be. I don't know. And I mean, at the end of the book now, he's got Farron, hasn't he? So I don't know. Farron has no.
Torturer. Oh my gosh.
Let's talk about the love story. Let's talk about your favourite bits. I'm really not okay. So Sam is dead. Sam Cortland, who a couple of days ago I really had no connection to, and then he was just beautiful. I think you said you think he was about 21, so a few years older than Selena. But for me, this just felt like that first love, like that adolescent, pure, as I keep using the word pure, but that's what it felt. It felt pure, it felt true. Even though there were moments where I think Sarah tried to throw us off and maybe, not trust him. Is he working with Arabin? Like, does he want to be the best assassin? Blah, blah. No, he pulls through as being true and honest, and he just kept wanting to get them away to a safe space. And I love this line. After Selena returns from the Red Desert and she's wondering what Sam endured, because she thinks that maybe Arabin firstly killed him, and then she saw him, he's okay, but what did he do to him? And, he looks at her when he's really frustrated with her because she keeps bloody not understanding that he's in love with her. But he says, he sent you to the Red Desert. He sent you to the Red Desert for her punishment. But my punishment was having to watch him beat you that night. Like, beyond his own beating, beyond his own torture, beyond all the things that happened to him, that was worse punishment, seeing her being beaten to, she was unconscious and then sent away. That's page 262 if you want to go relive that moment. So even when he was beaten so cruelly, that was worse. That's love, right? That's love.
Yeah. Well, I think it's with anything where you don't want to watch anyone you love in any kind of pain, emotional, physical, financial, spiritual, watching someone else in pain is worse, for sure. Especially, I think, as a man, where you have that protector element. Sorry, I'm going very stereotypical here, but if there is that protective element in a man, to watch then the woman that you love not be able to protect her, I think that would be awful.
Yeah, physically restrained and yelling, "I will kill you" to Arabin while she was being beaten, and that's what she can remember him screaming. Yeah, it would be awful. It would be awful. Look at me.
In many ways, this is an awful book. This is an awful, heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
There is no, I got no happy ending from it. There was no, relief. There is relief in that there is relief coming. But
the story continues. It doesn't just end this. That was the only relief I had last night, was okay, her story continues, and I'm going to assume there's going to be other love for her in the future. It's okay, Carlie. This is not the end. But if this had been a standalone, I'd be like, I hate this author, and I'm never reading it ever again.
Exactly. Why would we that? Is just like reading the news. This is awful things that we cannot seem to change in our limited capacity to impact things. We can't go into this book and say, don't go there. Oh my God, it's so obviously a trap. You have to stay together. Why would you not go as a team? Like, there are two of you. You've also like targeted the most lethal torturer in the city for like, he is known. They are the leaders of the, kind of competition that, they rule because there is no one worse than them. They're,
the mafia.
it just feels like they didn't look, I think both of them being too good intrinsically could not fathom that they would be betrayed, even though they knew that Aberin was not a good person and he would do anything to get ahead. They both viewed themselves as assets to that. And I guess even though they were leaving, that he had them as assets for so long that he had got so much out of them, and they were also not leaving to take anything with them or destroy his empire. It would have no impact on him. He would train more assassins, and it was such a petty, jealous,
he said
vindictive.
That, like, they obviously brought in a lot of money, but they paid, like, he got their wealth as well. He got Sam's wealth, he got her wealth, and then Sam dies and she's shipped off to the salt mines. At this point in the story, he got everything, the bastard. But back to Sam. I love that, he always could see through her bravado. He could see through the BS. He could see through the walls and still love her. Like, little lines like, she'd say, well, do you want me to apologize? And he'd be like, do I ever expect you to apologize for anything? And then he'd laugh or smile and walk off. He could see through, and he saved her. She saved him too, but he saved her. Like the scene in the sewer, ugh, gross. Like, that just made me absolutely sick to my stomach, the way SJM describes the rising sewer water. Like, he saved her there with the help of someone with a crowbar that magically appeared on the street. I mean, hello, fantasy world. But he saved her so many times, and I wonder in future books whether his spirit, his energy, that love will pull her through as well. I don't know. I'm just foreshadowing a little bit there. Another great line I loved, I'm really into pulling out lines now that you've got me into lines.
And I'm just like looking away being like, I know nothing about what's happening ahead.
Actually, I'm going to save that. I'm going to say that till the end, that line. That'll be our line for the episode.
Okay.
What else?
You know what I thought was the most loving moment in the book for me?
Yeah.
Was when we found out that she put the spider silk in his suit.
Yes. So spider silk, super rare, super strong. She got a piece of it. I can't even remember how she did that now. But anyway, she got a piece and she had it sewn into his assassin suit over his heart. And it saved him. He had an arrow.
Yeah.
Are you crying again?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty special. And yeah, I love that she just did that. She just made that happen. No big song or dance, just that's what she did. Yeah, he got her the sheet music, saved her life in the sewer, and she put the spider silk in his suit. Yeah, and I just love, like, he could have left. He could have left before she returned from the desert. He stayed, and he says that on page 310. Like, I couldn't leave until I saw that you had returned and that you were safe and that you were okay. Like, he was okay with staying and enduring all the crap that Arabin put him through, and even like he said if you'd come back and you were okay and you didn't love me or didn't want me, I would have been okay leaving because you were still alive and you were okay, even if she'd pick Arabin. Right. And then, oh my God, page 312, getting all excited and flustered. Can you tell that this is really fresh? Like he says, I think you would pick Arabin over me. And she said, you're a damned idiot. You're a moron and an ass and a damned idiot. He looked like she had hit him, but she went on and grasped both sides of his face because I'd pick you. And then she kissed him. And that was their first kiss. That was her first kiss. She'd never kissed anyone before. I mean, don't we all want that to be our first kiss ever?
That's right. And she did it. I mean, she didn't wait for someone to kiss her. You know, she was like, I'm
Yeah.
just going in, which is very indicative of the
After
kind of
she's
person.
insulted
She
the
is
crap out of
very
him. Yeah. You ass, you
impulsive.
idiot,
She does that often.
you
Yeah.
moron. But I love you, and
Yeah,
I.
that's right. I will pick you. I love you,
So if you
yes.
want to jump
I
straight
think
to the spiciest scene, and look, this book isn't that spicy, is it? It's very
no, it's not.
tame, but still has enough to go, oh, like it. And that's why I guess I think it's quite, they're not innocent humans, but this love feels very innocent to me. That first kiss, the first brush of his tongue against hers, full of lightning. She thought she might die from the rush of it. She wanted more. She wanted all of him. And they literally just make out that night. They just make out. And I just love the
Yeah,
innocence of that too.
yeah. And he would go at her pace, and it was very like exactly the kind of first boyfriend you would want. You know,
Yeah.
someone who would listen to you and not make you feel rushed and not make you feel that if you didn't want to go further or do something that, that made you, I don't know, inexperienced or immature or, less desirable. He was kind of like, whatever you want to share with me is enough, is perfect, is I'll take it all.
Yeah.
Or I'll just hold your hand.
But then they never got to take it anywhere. Then it all happened with Donovan and the mission and the betrayal and the awfulness, and then he was gone, and it was
Yeah.
just like, what?
And the worst thing is that Aberon made the plan around Selena's mercy, like knowing that she would want to save slaves and knowing that she would take a job where she could make an impact in a positive way, help people.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
that's how he wove it through,
But
so
also,
that she would become impulsive and overlook
yes,
things. And
yes, but also she took that job to get the money to get her and Sam out.
yes, where Sam was like, we don't need money, we'll just go there and we'll make money. Like, it was so obvious. It was just like, this is doomed. Like, I think there was so much, like, he's like, let's just walk away. And it's like when you watch a horror movie and you can see the whatever, like they're at the window and it's like they're behind the person, you're just like, turn around. It's that kind of, this is not going to go well. Like, even if I'd read this book first, I didn't know what happened, I'd be like, this is not going to go well. Like, there is no way you're going to pull this off. It is too big a coup against people that are too evil, that they're much older than you. They have much less ability to tap into their humanity. They're just, you're picking old evil men.
Yeah.
Well, they're not even that old.
Were you thrown at all when Arabin came to her apartment and sort of warned her not to take the job? Were you thrown by that, or were you like, oh no, you're trying to throw her off the scent so she's going to want to do it more? Because he said no one ever comes out alive after trying to kill Farron and, what was the other one's name? Start with J. The other dude. Jake? No. Anyway.
Jara or something?
I need to look it up. But that's okay. Like, did
Dora?
that throw you? We're like, oh, hang on. Maybe he does want to see her.
I think that it didn't throw me because I felt like he does love her. He has this part of him that is like a father, that is like and also I think that he, like many people, they are drawn to Selena's strength and power and goodness. She radiates this type of aura that just is more than other people. Like, it's something unique. Like, it's this aspect of like a type of higher self, higher bit. Like, it's like she's channeled. There's something in her, which in these worlds is obviously, like, it can be that they're royalty, or they've got special powers, or they've bonded to someone, or they've come from a lineage or something that. So she has I think and he knows where she's come from. So there is probably this aspect of there. And she's beautiful. So there's probably this aspect that was like, I would love to be with her. Like, to be with her.
Yeah.
I'm probably attracted to her, but I'm also like, which isn't that weird at that time, I guess. There was much,
17 and
less
40s?
age. I think he's only in his 30s. Like, it's not.
They make him
I
sound
think he
so
was like a
old.
young.
They make him sound so
I know, but I
old.
guess for 17-year-old, he is old. And I think to live through that many years in that kind of life, it would age you. You become so much more beaten down or broken. Like the parts of your humanity become beaten, so they become locked away. And I think he did go there with the intention of, like, he probably had a moment of, she is going to do this, and she is going to go through insurmountable pain. It's not going to be physical. Like, she's not going to die because that's the deal they made, but and also I think that if that theory is true, that Sam was Arabin's illegitimate son, which is what is floating around on the TikTok kind of waves at the moment, is that I'm sure there would be part of him as a father that was like, I am sacrificing my son.
Yeah.
And even if he was like, I never wanted him, and he was from like someone that I never loved his mother, or, I sacrificed for him, I had to buy him back and I lost my fortune, or I've got a blood bond with someone, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure there was multi-layered reasons why he was conflicted and had that moment of like, I can't stop it. I've made the deal. I've set it all in motion, but she could stop it. And then perhaps I could talk her into staying in another way, or like, which I think on some level he probably knew by asking her, he would push her the opposite way, like push her further into it. But I feel like he felt so, he was like a compulsion. He had to ask, and it was probably this fleeting moment in his life where he went, I can't stop it, but she could. And maybe that's what's better for all of us if she does leave, and then he's also like, but I know her, and I also know that she won't, and this will probably make it worse, but there is this tiny % chance that she may listen. It's all bad. There's so many like heartbreaking little moments in there that feel unnecessary, because I'm here for the happy endings and the love that lasts, like I really there have been a few things that happen further on in the series that really broke me, but they're not what I expected would break me, and you get the sustaining love story that will keep you, which keeps me going, but there are some side plots that happen that are very close to the main plot where you're just like it's a little bit.
What a journey. If you're just starting with this series.
More than Sam, I think.
Okay.
If you're starting this series, like, prepare yourself, book in some therapy, like make sure you've got you've brought your caffeine intake down, you're doing some like nature time, you've got a support friend you can call. No, it's not that bad, honestly.
You can message us. We'll support you through this. Come back to this podcast, listen to another little dose of something funny and light, and then we will dive in. So we will come back and do some more deep dives into the other books in this series, because as I read through them, I'll be wanting to talk, Madge, and I know you've read them, so we'll do that. But we could talk for hours, but let's just start to wind this up, our little tender hearts.
That's right. We need a little bit of a breather to just go and do some curl up rocking in the corner and self-soothing to bring us back.
But I do, in a nutshell, I already sense that this was a very important book for SJM to write and bring out for this series, for the fans of this series. I think it's quite remarkable to have written a whole series and then to write a prequel that ties so beautifully in and gives enough context and background. She's very, very, very obviously a very gifted writer and very clever. But we're going to finish up with a line. Now, we always finish our episodes with a famous line, or a line that we love, or a line that we just think will hit our audience. And usually we make you guess. But I mean, today this is going to obviously be from the Assassin's Blade. And it's just one that, I mean, there's so many lines that hit you, and I often hear lines that other people say, I'm like, yeah, didn't really get me. But this one was where, he's about to pretty much say, why don't you understand that I love you? And she is again just being facetious at him. And she says, I don't particularly care what you think of me, to him. And Sam says, well, I care what you think of me. I care enough that I stayed at this disgusting party just for you. And I care enough that I'd attend 1,000 more like it so I could spend a few hours with you when you aren't even looking at me, or you are looking at me like I'm not worth the dirt beneath your shoes.
Oh,
Ugh.
he has it bad. He really loved her.
And it really does make us stop for a second and think, finally. Anyway, page 284, that was one that just was like, oh, that's love. I'd even be here when you think that I'm the dirt beneath your shoes, because I freaking love you. So we'll leave you with that. Madge, go do something lovely and grounding for yourself. I am going to do that too. This has been fun.
Swim in the ocean.
You're going to swim in the ocean. And
we want to make sure you tell us. Yes, I do think definitely keep telling us what you're reading, because we love to hear.
Yeah.
And if you have time, jump on and answer the polls that will pop below. So, because we want to know what you think. If you've read this book, we want to know how you experienced it. Are you as heartbroken as us? Are you struggling to function? I mean, what order did you read it in?
Yeah.
I don't think I could read it again. So there's certain books that I feel like I have read them once and I don't need to reread. There's not enough in this book that it's like choosing pain. That's how I feel about this book. It's like, yeah, I don't feel good today. What is the most masochistic thing I can do to myself? Oh, I'll read Assassin's Blade again. That's how I feel.
Okay, let's give it some time.
So I won't be doing
time. We'll see how you feel in time. All right, love it. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and yeah, we'll be chatting to you soon. I've loved this deep dive. Thanks, Madge.
My pleasure, Carlie. We'll talk again next week.
See you later.